Today's interview is with Sam Wilson. Sam started real estate investing through buying at auction, which is something we probably wouldn't recommend for everyone. But then he went into doing foreclosures and flipping homes, and then transitioned into doing some commercial deals. He's done a little bit of everything in that space. He's done multifamily, and interestingly, he's invested a lot in parking lots. So he talks about that, how it kind of works, and how the pandemic affected that. So all of that should be of interest to everyone, I think. So stick around for all of that great interview. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily investor Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Sam Wilson. Hey Sam, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you here and excited to dive into today's fun conversation. But before we do that, do you want to sort of introduce yourself and give people an idea about who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sam. Obviously, we said that already, but I started investing in real estate in 2013, got into it by accident, which is a different story all in its own, but found out that I really loved it and just kept plugging away at it. I've done everything from fix and flip to, rental property, which I still own. I've got passive investments around the country in self-storage and RV parks, in apartment communities. I'm an active builder in the RV and boat storage industry. I am an active investor in multifamily, and really I love, so I'm kind of all over the place a little bit. People would say, well, that's the shiny object syndrome. And that's partially true. I can't, I got the attention span of a gnat, so I can't really focus for too long, but I really love the variety of it. So yeah, that's the short of it. I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee, where here on, what is today? February 16th?
Something like that.
Whenever this goes live,
Tuesday,
I don't know. I don't know how far out
Tuesday,
booked you are. Yeah, Tuesday the 16th. We've got 6 inches of snow, which is unheard of. But yeah, I mean that's the short and skinny on me and what's happening here.
What about global warming? Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Let's not even go there. Gonna offend someone either way. Yeah.
I got a coat on. That's all I know.
Well, you said you fell into it by accident, right? How do you feel? Like people are like, how do you fall in real estate by accident? But it was kind of something similar to myself. I'd be interested what your story is.
Yeah, well, I mean, the short story that will really make it really, really condensed is one day I woke up and was looking at a foreclosure auction listing here in Tennessee, and they had I saw a house that was coming up for sale that day, and they'd posted the bid price. Sometimes they had posted some of these attorneys here in Tennessee would post the bid prices before the auction, which they don't really do anymore, but they did then. I saw the bid price, went and looked at the house. 2 hours later, I owned a house. Okay. And because I went to the auction at the courthouse steps, bought the house, we made a pile of money on it, and I said, oh, that was fun. We should keep doing that. And so we did.
But there must have been something that brought you there before that, right? You don't just like out of the blue one day, like you have no interest in real estate whatsoever, never thought about it, and then decide to go on the auction. Or do you? By your facing might suggest that you do.
I mean, pretty much did.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't read a book. I didn't even know what a deed was. I didn't know anything, man. I mean, but I'm opportunistic, and I think this is, so we'll back up a little bit by saying this, that, I grew up very poor. And so when you are poor, or when you grow up in, not that we were poverty, but because we certainly, we weren't, we had clothes on our back and food, but we were very, very poor. And with that said, you find ways to feed yourself no matter what. So I think I'm always opportunistic, and there's always that ability when you see value to take advantage of it. And so for me that day, I had a very rudimentary understanding of what the value of this property could be. And I saw what condition it was in, and I knew what the buy price was. And I said, well, shoot, there's a lot of meat on the bone here. I need money. I'll buy the house. I mean, so there's a little bit more that goes into it than just like, oh, hey, I don't want to get into real estate. It's like, oh no, I've done that with everything, be it cars, boats, trucks, houses, land, you name it, man. It's like, oh, I can make a buck on that. Sure, we'll buy it. And so that was it for me. It was just another opportunity to make a buck. It was like, all right, cool, I'll buy that. Why not? And so, but I didn't ever intend on it turning into really my, what I love to do, which is real estate now. But that's, so yeah, that's exactly how it happened. I didn't ever really want to get into real estate, and there I was.
That's awesome though. That's pretty cool. And obviously it was a successful outcome, and you kind of had the aha moment, like, oh, wait a minute, I can make some money
Right.
doing this stuff.
Right. And I was looking, and I was in the middle of a career change anyway. So I didn't have any sort of stable, I never have had a stable full-time job. I think I'd make a terrible employee. Most people would fire me probably within the week, but that aside from that, yeah, I mean, I was looking for my next thing too. So that also helped, as it was like, okay, what's next? And that presented itself, and here we are.
So from there, do you start flipping stuff? Is that what was your next step from there?
Yeah, so the next step was obviously to keep, try to figure out this foreclosure gig. I mean, I didn't even understand what I was doing. I didn't know title search. I didn't know what deeds were. I didn't know what warranty deeds were, I just didn't understand any of it. And so I just kind of kept asking, be it bankers, be it, foreclosure attorneys, be it other guys at the auctions. I just went to auctions, attended auctions and auctions and auctions, and picked people's brains. And hey man, what's this about? And they're like, oh, have you checked out this before? And that takes you down this rabbit trail and that rabbit trail. I mean, I don't think I paid for a course or read a book until late 2017, early 2018. Yeah, 2017. It's been 2017 the first time I actually paid to learn anything about real estate, which was good. All that's good too. But that was just the next step. And so then I just took that as far as I could. We just bought foreclosures, went to all the auctions, and just started buying houses and fixing and flipping. Ended up holding on to a few in the process that, I couldn't, we fixed a flip, but we couldn't turn them, couldn't sell them for whatever reason. And so they just ended up being held as rentals. And I figured out the rental business. I'm like, oh, I can hold these as rentals and make money on these too. Okay, well, we'll keep doing that too. Which actually, in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd held all those properties that I'd flipped. I mean, golly, what an idiot. You make, 20 or 30,000 bucks on a house, and that's, that's fine. But if I had held on to all those houses I'd bought, I'd be in a lot different position even now. Not that I advocate for single family, growing a single family portfolio. It's not in my list of things that I want to do, but it certainly would be something I would change. Would not be to have flipped them. I would have held them all for cash flow.
Right. And then where does boat investing and car investing come in there? Was it just the same thing, the opportunistic side of yourself and the shiny object syndrome as well?
Absolutely. And I'm doing a lot better job. I will say that I'm doing a much better job of refining my my compulsivity in buying. So it now I've got a very, if I've actually my 2021, so I've got kind of a portfolio or a binder that I go through every morning. It's my morning routine, right? And it's got all my pages they're all drafted out. It's got my goals. It's got what I want to do. But one of my number one goals in 2021 is it says I will take on no project that does not advance my commercial real estate interests or something to that effect. So if it's outside of that, then my blinders are on. So no, I'm not buying trucks and boats and all that stuff anymore. I mean, that's just, again, that's part of what you do growing up. But now it's hyper focused. So yeah, that's how that fits in.
That's interesting. But the cars I get, but the boats, don't boats lose their value a lot, or do you just flip them straight away?
There's always delta somewhere.
Okay.
There's somebody that needs to sell and somebody that needs to buy. And if somebody's trying to get RVs, I mean, you name it. Yeah. I mean, somebody's getting rid of something somewhere. And if it just crosses your path and it makes sense and you're like, hey, wait, I can make $1,000 on this in the next 24 hours. Yes. All right. I'll do that. Hey man, here's yours. Just shuffling paper. I mean, that's the way it's done when you're hungry. So, but again, as you grow and as you mature, you also figure out that some of those things aren't probably the best use of your time in the long haul.
Right. But it's a learning curve, I guess, right? And you said that you have a morning routine and you have a binder. So what do you mind me asking? What does your morning routine consist of, and what does the binder consist of? Because that's really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, on the outside of it, I've got 3 checks for things that I want to buy. They're very large checks. They are things that someday I say, you know what, these are checks I'm going to write. I've got, and I can just tell you what they are. One is a ranch. I love being outside, and someday I will live in the mountains on a ranch. Secondly is for an airplane. I'm a pilot and I love to fly. And so I have a very nice airplane that I say someday I'm going, and I don't own one right now, but I will own that airplane.
So if you don't mind me asking, can you tell us more about your morning routine and then what that folder includes? Because I'm interested.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so it's I'll go from the outside in, which I mean, on the outside are 3 large checks that I intend on writing someday. One is for a ranch in Colorado. I want to live in Colorado. I want to live on a ranch. I would love to live in the mountains at some point in my life. It's been a lifelong goal, and I'm not sure why I'm almost turning 40 and not hitting that yet, but that will be something I do at some point. Secondly, is I'm a pilot and I love to fly, and so I have a very nice airplane that I intend on buying someday. And then the third thing, what is the? It's a super nice luxury RV. Like, I
Okay.
love to travel and go. And so my wife and I, we put 22,000 miles on our RV last year and spent 2.5 months on the road.
Nice.
And so for me, it's like, wait, one day I'm going to have one of those like really, really nice RVs. And so those are just kind of fun things. And you just kind of look at it and say, hey, you know what? Someday I'm going to be in a position to write that, and that check's not going to matter, because I'm going to continue to do the things every day that set me up for those future successes. And again, those, when I get to that point, well, I really want the airplane or the boat or the giant ranch. I don't know. Maybe I'll just want a condo in the mountains so I can go play and have fun. Who knows? That can change. But I think the setting your mind right for this is where I'm going versus just showing up and seeing where things lead is a better place to go. So, once you get inside of that, then we really just go through you're all right, man. Come on in, Justin. I'm sorry. Do you use this video?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, shoot.
It's all good. It's all good. We can keep going.
Yeah. So then after that, let's see, what's the rest of that? I really use Hal Elrod's. He has this thing called the Saviors Routine. I don't know if you've read through that at all, but it's
No.
it's a silence, affirmations, visualizations. When does he go to after that? Exercise, reading, and scribing. So it really makes you sit down and do the things every day that I think set you up for success. Reading is one of those things that I always say I'm going to do, but I don't do a good job of. So if I track it every day and say, hey, did I read? Am I reading a business book? And that's what helps me get, I've got a book list for the year. So that's part of the things I go through is what's my January read? What's my February read? What am I listening to? And really just going through those steps every day, I think for me really sets the tone for my day. Which, we kind of talked about this off air. Having now 3 foster kids in the house has really disrupted that routine. A 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, an 8-month-old make the world kind of go crazy. So some of those morning routines have gone out the window. And right now my daily goals are really to drink coffee before someone starts nagging, have me saying, hey, I need milk. But we'll get back in the groove on that. So that's just kind of what that morning routine looks like. And it's been really, really, really good for me, both growth personally and in business.
That's cool. I think it's important. And how you start the day is right. How you set the tone for most of the rest of the day. So I think that's cool to start it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where did commercial real estate come into this? Was it just through investing passively in deals, or did you start investing actively initially?
Yes. So we'd bought about 60 houses by the beginning of 2018. And I think once we had acquired that many houses, we realized that it just wasn't scalable. So, the every house is different. There's all those different roofs to deal with. There's all the different HVAC systems. Everything has its own lifespan, its own age. And suddenly I realized that I was just running an adult daycare. So, if you're dealing with contractors every day, all day, I mean, I always say that grandmother can only die so many times in a year. And especially when you're doing fix and flip, or when you're doing rental property like that, you've got the guys you're dealing with aren't your top tier operators. In order to keep your margins respectable, you've got to work with guys that are, I would say there's 3 things you can get in contracting. You can get good, you can get fast, you can get cheap, but you can only pick any 2. So, you're typically not getting good and fast. You're getting, good and cheap, or fast and cheap. It's just, you can't get all 3 of them out of the same guy, especially again, when you're working at those levels of tradesmen that you really have to work with in order to keep your margins right. So we realized it was not scalable, nor was it sustainable. I'm already bald, so it's not like I can lose any more hair, which I did lose it actually in contracting. That's a different story. But in 2018, met up with a guy that was buying parking lots and parking garages. Met him at a conference, and I said, "Hey, man, I love what you do. There's no tenants, there's no toilets, there's no termites. What do I do to learn the parking business from you?" And so John and I set on about a 2-year run of looking at, evaluating, acquiring parking assets, and that was great. And that's really when I pumped the brakes entirely on single family and went straight into parking. So, and that's what really kept me and turned me on to it. That's at that same time when I started making passive investments in RV storage, in RV parks. and then did some self-storage investments with some guys passively. And so kind of all that started, once the ball starts rolling, it becomes, it kind of becomes a self-sustaining momentum.
Yeah. Well, how did that work out? The parking lots. Was there any reason you went away from that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you go back to March of 2020, that's when the world kind of really turned upside down. And usually there's two things that generally happen when you look at an asset. One is, if the NOI falls, usually there's a related fall in or decrease in price, right? Because these assets are underwritten based on their NOI. So it happens in March 2020, who's going to ball games, who's going to soccer games, who's going to bar night and weekend, who's flying. I mean, the world just came to a halt, and so did parking. And so what we didn't see was a decrease in the asset prices. And we really haven't seen it yet. We're beginning to see some cracks in the industry where you're like, oh, hey, this might make sense. But we haven't seen anything with the great big red buy button show up on it yet. Because again, the NOI fell off a cliff, but the asset prices really remain the same. Buyers still or sellers still, because like, oh, we're going to hold on. We're going to hold on. Prices will come back sometime in mid 2020, late 2020, sometime 21, and with all this weird stimulus money floating around, I mean, just strange things have happened so that people, and again, and I don't wish bad things on anyone, but I do have to be able to underwrite the deal. And because you can't underwrite it, you can't buy it. So we stopped. We just said, look, we pump the brakes on this, and we're going to wait until it makes sense. We looked at something down in Florida last week, a large asset that was very nice. We'll see where that goes. But again, the numbers just have to be right. And so we just haven't seen that really too much yet.
In Florida, there was a parking lot you were looking at?
Garage, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because everything's pretty open there.
Yeah, well, and lots are the best. I mean, I'd much rather buy a lot than a garage, but that's a different discussion for a different day. So yeah, but that's what got me into commercial real estate, yeah, that's where we are today. I mean, that's, again, looking across multiple asset classes, but really finding the operators and the partners that can help you scale those different asset classes. I mean, because as you're well aware, doing a daily podcast, there's only so many hours in a day. Mm-hmm. Like even this podcast will probably take you twice the amount of time it does to record it. So it is, you just got to find the right industry partners. And I think building that out has been instrumental in being able to access all these different asset classes while I'm still just, one guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a focus on anything, or is it just any kind of commercial asset that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm heavily the boat and RV storage was again an opportunistic deal. Somebody brought it to me. They had the land, they had the land under contract, they had the vision for the project, they had the expertise, but they didn't have the funding or the commercial underwriting skills to make it happen. They had no idea how they're going to get across the finish line. They just said, "Hey, look, I own storage." They own some smaller storage, but they didn't know really, what they were going to do to get the funding to make the deal happen. So that one, I said, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring to the table the commercial experience to get this deal funded and get this deal built. And then after that, you're going to run it, and I'm going to own a certain percentage of that, for the duration. But once this baby is erected and it is occupied, I'm pretty much out of the deal. So you asked about focus. I mean, that's not going to be my focus necessarily unless it shows up again. But then also, I do have a very strong interest in multifamily. Of course, so does the rest of America, it seems. So,
yeah. No, you're not interested in value add multifamily by any chance, are you?
Right, exactly. Let me tell you something you haven't heard. But even within multifamily, there are some really niche segments that if you pay attention there, again, what I've always found is that not necessarily going against the grain, but when you see everybody running in a particular direction, you kind of have to look off or maybe behind you and say, maybe it is turning around. I don't know, but say, I want to look the other direction, because you'll generally find that that's where the value lies. Because if everybody's flocking to an asset class, of course the prices are going to skyrocket. But if there's complexity to it, if it's difficult to understand, if people walk away, and I found this to be true in foreclosures. I mean, here in Tennessee, the foreclosure markets are so convoluted and broken. I mean, it's like stepping back in time, literally going to the courthouse steps, and you got 10 guys standing around one other guy, and one guy's reading off an auction, right? He's like, I've got such address, opening bid, $214,999.12. And then all of a sudden the fury begins, and then they hand over cashier's checks for the closest denomination they might have. So say the bid's 248, and he's like, okay, well, shoot, man, I brought checks in 20s. I'll give you 260, and then the attorney mails him back the 12 grand difference. Like, what is this? I mean, literally millions of dollars in guys' pockets and cashier's checks out in the bitter cold buying houses. This is ridiculous. Like, but people get scared by that, right? Because they're like, wait, so you're telling me I go to the courthouse, I stand on the steps, some weird guy walks up with a piece of paper in his hand, reads off something random, and then we give him cashier's checks, and that's it? Yeah, it's the quickest sale you ever make. It's one page. Sign your name, here's your money. And then you get a deed in the mail. But that's complicated for people, and I found that to be true in multifamily as well. There are asset specific, unique asset specific things that if you pay attention to within tax code, within within the way that state and governments regulate housing, that you can really find a lucrative niche. And so I'm looking at those, actively investing in those. And I mean, that's just kind of where we are right now. So that it is, multifamily is of interest, but it's not just the willy-nilly throw against the wall multifamily approach.
Right. Well, with so much going on, are you doing all this yourself? Do you have partners in everything you do, or are you just like one of these non-stop people that can do everything?
I cannot do everything.
Okay.
I certainly can't do everything. I'm very limited. I will tell you, Barry, I suck at most things. And I mean that I don't mean that just to be, false humility. I really do. Like, I've got a very, very limited skill set that is good. And I try to stay within that. And I think, I don't know if I'm going to spoil one of your questions. You know, you've got 4 of them. Do we ask those later?
Go ahead. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So you told me one of the questions you were going to ask me is really, what is my special move? And I think my special move is being able to identify value. And I don't know if that's even one that even makes sense, but it's something where I think I can spot value in something and then have the courage to go buy it, while most other people are still thinking about it, or wondering, or pondering, or putting, twiddling their thumbs on their desk going, gosh, I think this is a good idea. I bet if we did X, Y, but damn, son, by the time you're done with all that, I've bought it and sold it again. Like, here's the value, go. And so I think being able to identify, it was like this RV boat storage that we're building. Like, it just made sense. He called me with the project, and I go, about 6 seconds later, I'm like, back of the napkin, I'm like, yeah, we can make money at that. That's a real good project. Let's go. Like, let's hit buy now and don't slow down. But I also have that same ability when it comes to things that I'm not sure of. Like, I've walked away from a lot of stuff where it's like, ooh, I don't know about that. Like, that one doesn't feel good. I want to get involved, but it's not adding up. And so I don't know if that's fake or not, but it is what it is. So, I mean, that's about the only thing I'm good at. Outside of that, man, if it comes to detail, if it comes to, writing cute reports, if it comes to, I love talking to people too. Like, investor relations are fun. Like, that's fun for me. And I know a lot of people hate that. So, talking about money and talking about how we're going to make money on projects, that's a big part of my things that I really enjoy. So, try to stay in that lane. And then like you asked earlier, it's partners. On all these, there's excellent partners on all these projects that handle, their particular things that they are excellent at as well.
Yeah. So how are you meeting investors? How are you, you said that's one of your skill set is investor relationships, or it means building relationships with investors and bringing them onto deals. How you meet? Is it podcast? Is it meetups? Is it being out there? Is it a little bit of everything? Is it something special?
Yeah, I would say there's no special sauce to it. It really is just getting your name out there. Podcasting is part of it, but also just telling people what you do. I mean, if you're bringing value to people, especially when you're able to deliver excellent returns, and if you're bringing value to them with excellent returns, people want to get involved with what you're doing. I mean, if you're honest about it, if you deliver, if you communicate on time, what I have, people want. And so I think the fear for most of us is that the other way around. Like they think that maybe people won't want what you have, but if you're delivering consistent value to your investors, man, I mean, come on, get on board. We've got home run projects, and we did a project last year that supposed to be a 10-year hold. We ended up being a 4-month hold. We doubled everybody's money in 4 months. I mean, it wasn't planned that way, but I mean, hey, it's just what happens. We bought it. Next thing we know, we got an offer, and we're like, how did this happen? Okay, sure, run, go. Yeah, we'll sell that. Why not?
Well, tell us more about that deal. That sounds really interesting. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, well, what was it? Like,
yeah, it was sure. So it was a 19-space parking lot in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
It was a little corner lot that, we purchased with the intent to hold for 10 years. We had projections out for 10 years, had great financing on it, but we were able to turn NOI. We increased NOI like 25% in the first month. And then just had some other investors come along that wanted to pay us a whole lot more for the project than what we paid for it. And I did a present value of the future cash flows analysis. And I said, wait, it's going to take us this money. Yes, we're selling that. Like that money today is worth that money today. So we're selling that. And everybody was elated. So when you can do things like that and deliver, I don't know, it just, good things happen.
How did you find that deal? Connections?
Yeah. So the parking industry was an interesting one in that you had to actually physically walk each city. So you can't go to Google Maps and find a parking lot. Like if you look at downtown Houston, it's all asphalt, right? Which one is paid parking? I don't know. You can go to parking.com or ParkMe or whatever it is, these different sites, and try to find it, but those are all incomplete and they all have terrible data. So in the parking industry, you'd have to go to the city, walk it, mark them off on a map, like on a Google Maps. Of course, I just drop pins on Google Maps, then research it, find the owners, and start making offers. And so that's exactly what I did.
Nice. It just goes to show you, if you're willing to do what other people aren't, you can get good, because most people wouldn't do that. But
right.
How do you like? I get multifamily, right? You can buy a property, fix up the units, paint it nice, make the outside curb appeal, manage it better. That's how you increase the NOI. But on a parking lot, it's a parking lot, right? How do you increase that by 25%? Was it just completely mismanaged? They wasn't charging enough, or are there strategic stuff that you can do?
There's definitely strategic stuff you can do. So, one of them obviously is your signage, your asphalt, your striping. It is making the lot presentable. It's making it easy for people to pay. There's just basic curb appeal, no pun intended, curb appeal stuff that you can do. The other thing is lease renegotiation. A lot of these parking lots are owned by mom and pop owners. They're just individual owners. It's a very segmented industry. And so with these mom and pop owners, they don't get the best leases in town because they don't know how to negotiate for a good lease. They don't even know what they should be getting, right? And so if they don't know what they should be getting, then the parking operator is going to give them a terrible lease. So one of the first things we always did was go in and just renegotiate lease and or fire the operator and bring a new operator in. Because if they're a legacy operator and they've been there for 5, 7, 10 years, they're gonna, they're just not hustling anymore. Are they hustling when there's ball games? Are they out there? Are they bringing guys in with they bring the flaggers in there? $25 to park here for an hour and a half or whatever it is. If they're not out there doing that, then they're not driving up the income on the property. If they're not doing that, then you're not making as much money. So you've got to have an operator that's willing to do that. So those are all the things we really went in and did. Was most of the time fire the operator, improve the condition of the lot, improve the signage. Just make sure that the guys who are out there are actually working hard for you. So that's that's how you value add in a parking lot versus a apartment complex.
That's interesting. Do you have a favorite? You've tasted many different flavors of commercial assets, right? Do you have a favorite?
I don't, to be honest with you. I love parking because it was so hands off. I mean, that was a fun one in that you really just got an ACH in your bank account every month. I always said my phone never rang, and it didn't. I mean, who's going to call me? We always said, what's going to happen? What's it going to do? Flood? We just wait for the water to go down. It's asphalt. Like your level of risk was so low. I mean, our insurance was just dirt cheap. I can't remember what it was, but it was absurd. It was less than your homeowner's insurance for a commercial parking lot, I assure you, because your operator's carrying insurance as well. I mean, you still have slip and fall. You still have people's cars getting broken into, but you've got an operator's insurance policy covering you as well. So that was always helpful. But yeah, I think parking was a fun one just from a management side, in that there really was no management. Favorite asset class outside of that, I don't know. I like multifamily. I like what it does for people when you can provide a solid asset. This deal we've got going right now is a solid asset where we're going to be able to provide some awesome housing for for a Class C project. It's a beautiful Class C project. You can't normally say those two words together. And it's well run, it's well maintained. So being able to provide awesome housing for tenant bases that don't normally get to have awesome housing, I think is fun. So there's some intangible reward there. Um, but outside of that, favorite asset class, I don't really care.
Okay. As long as it makes you money, right?
Well, yeah, and I hate to say that too, but that's true. That's true. I'm not in it for charity, so I do still have to eat.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, interesting, man. It's so interesting. It's not very often you find someone who has, managed to do so much different stuff as yourself, right? And it's cool though, right? It takes a certain skill set. I think you're downplaying your skill set and your ability to, like you said, the ability to see a deal regardless of what it is, right, and make sense of it, right? Not in terms of every last detail, but like to be able to look at it. I wouldn't do that. I would be looking at packing. I don't know what this is worth, or a boat. I don't know. I'll pay, and I end up paying 20 grand more than it's worth or something. I'm stuck with a boat. That's how it would go for me. So, right. But that is the skill set in itself, and it's awesome that you're able to do all this stuff, because obviously the aim of the game is to be profitable, right, and to provide a better life for ourselves, right? So it's really cool that you're able to do that. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I'm going to ask some wrestling related real estate questions. And the first one is, what would your wrestling name be?
Oh, geez. You got me on this one. I know you told me this early, man. I don't know. It had to be something with bald. I don't know. I don't know the like. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. You got any suggestions for me? I'll take them. I don't know much about wrestling.
I don't know. The man of many talents. I don't know.
There you go.
Because you're able to do many because of all the different asset classes that you've been in. So the man of many talents is in the ring. What is his special move? Because every wrestler has a special move,
Yeah, I think we touched on this earlier. I think it's just seeing value. Yeah. And again, it's seeing value and having the courage to act on that conviction. And again, I see this in so many people. So much of the time, they talk and talk. I hate talk, man. Like a business meeting, like beat me. No, I'm good. I'm real good. Like, let's not sit down and why don't we do, and then we'll come back and talk. And so I see that with a lot of people. And for me, it's just moving when you see opportunity. Like, so go. Yep. Yeah. I like it. Move forward.
Fire, ready, aim, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's about it. That's exactly right.
That's cool. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken?
Yeah. Ooh, man. Well, I mean, March last year was a good one. I mean, we had a single focus on a single asset class, and then suddenly having that faucet completely turn off was a challenge. So we had to say, all right, like, now what are we going to do? I mean, that took 3 or 4 months of me kind of quasi panicking, going, oh crap, now what? We got to switch asset classes. We've got to switch. We got to switch branding. We've got to switch. Really, what our thesis is, what our investment thesis is, and kind of retool that thing entirely. And then finding out in the middle of that which asset classes make the most sense. In this environment, what does that look like? So I think last year, and I think it was for a lot of people, was probably the biggest one. I mean, I've lost money before. Don't get me wrong. I've lost a good amount of money on certain projects, and even that probably wasn't the biggest body slam because it was right in the middle of making money on a ton of other projects. I mean, that's business. You lose money. I mean, to show me an investor that's never lost money and I'm not investing with you because you haven't learned anything yet. So I want to invest alongside the guys that have some battle scars. And, for me, that probably last year was one of the biggest ones because you just go, well, we got to figure this out. And, I don't do well with uncertainty. So, yeah, there you go.
So was there a moment you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I've got one of those right now going on, where we've got an amazing project, but I'm only committing to raise a certain amount of the funds for it because I just want to make sure that we can hit our targets. And if I had the absolute courage to say, okay, yeah, we can raise twice that, I would. because it's a project that, has probably a 3x equity multiple over an 8-year hold, investor returns in year 3. I mean, it's just a home run project. So I'm probably right there right now with a little bit of, I'm halfway jumping. It's like, oh yeah, we can, I know I can tackle this mark. So we're going to do that. And then, if I had probably a little bit more courage to take more action on this one, I would, but I've just got to make sure we hit our target on it.
Yeah, very cool. Well, man, this has been a fun interview. It's been a really interesting one, man. I had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs on this one, but it's really interesting what you've done and what you're doing. So I appreciate you making the time, man. But before you go, can you let people know how they can get in touch with you, where they can get in touch with you, and all that good stuff, whatever you've got to promote, your podcast as well. Just plug everything.
Yeah, sure. Man. You can always check me out on the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate podcast. That is a daily show, so check that out on all the major platforms. You can find me at the brickeninvestmentgroup.com. That's actually not it's just brickeninvestmentgroup.com. You can also reach me via email, sam@bricken, that's BRICKEN, investmentgroup.com. You can also reach me on just call me straight up, 901-500-6191. That's my cell phone number. So, usually respond faster there than anywhere else. But there's lots of different ways to connect with me. So any of those sources, and find me on LinkedIn as well. Very active on LinkedIn. So find me there as well.
Brave man putting your phone number out there.
That's all right. What are you gonna do? Call me? I'll hit ignore if you blow me up too much, and then I'll never know you called again.
That's awesome. Well, hey Sam, thanks for making the time, man. This was a lot of fun. Have an awesome rest of your day out there, man.
Thank you, Barry. It's a pleasure being on.